Hey, Microsoft has recently disclosed a critical vulnerability, a vulnerability that affects the all Microsoft Outlook Windows application. And the exploitation part of that vulnerability is trivial, and that makes this vulnerability more dangerous. And in this video, I'm going to go through a blog from TrendMicro that talks about this vulnerability, and also TryHackMe has launched an incredible room that explains this vulnerability from the scratch, and also it allows us to try that exploitation attempt. Well, without further ado, let's begin. Now you are witnessing the room I am talking about, and before starting this, you have to ensure you have started the TryHackMe's machine and you have connected to the TryHackMe's VPN, so that you'll be able to try that exploitation on their machine itself. And before we go and explore through this TryHackMe room, let's see this TrendMicro blog. Actually, the blog is very impressive. They have added a lot of details about this vulnerability. Now let's go through this vulnerability for a few minutes before beginning this TryHackMe exercise. Well, the title itself is Patch CVE-2023-23397, a kind of urging, right? Immediately, what you need to do, what you need to know. Well, we break down the basic information of CVE 2023-23397, and that's the common vulnerability exposure ID given to this flaw, the 0-day zero touch vulnerability. And here is the hint: it's a 0-day flaw because it is a new, and it is also zero touch. I'll explain what it is in a moment. That was rated 9.8 on common vulnerability scoring system scale, and you can see the score. It actually got whopping 9.8. There is a reason, because the exploitation is very trivial. I'll explain it. And all right, now let's begin. The blog actually updated on March 22nd, and look at this one. CVE, that CVE ID is a critical privilege elevation and authentication bypass vulnerability. Since it got 9.8, you might have thought like it should be a remote code execution, but it is not. It is actually a privilege escalation and authentication bypass flaw. And in Outlook, and Outlook is a popular application, and that could be one of the reasons for giving that 9.8 score, released as a part of March Patch Tuesday set of fixes. Well, Microsoft has fixed this flaw in their Patch Tuesday. Then only they have disclosed this vulnerability. This vulnerability, which affects all versions of Windows Outlook, was given 9.8 CVSS rating and is one of the 2 0-day exploits disclosed on March 14th, and looks like they have disclosed another 0-day. Well, we summarize the points the security teams needs to know about this vulnerability. All right, what is it? And here is the explanation for this, and you can see the pretty looking image that explains this attack. Well, this specific vulnerability is a privilege elevation flaw, and it affects the Microsoft Outlook. It's a zero touch exploit. I'll say what it is, meaning the security gap requires low complexity to abuse and requires no user interaction, and that makes this vulnerability more terrifying one. Well, let's see this image, and here you can see the numbers. So this is how you have to follow the steps. First, it begins with the attacker, of course, and attacker looks like the attacker is building an MSG file. MSG file is a typical file. It's like a reminder file, like a kind of invitation file used in Microsoft Outlook. Sends calendar item to email recipient. You should have used that calendar invite, sending and receiving stuff, right? That file is typically an MSG file. And attacker utilizes an extended message application program interface property to transmit a message to the target. Well, it's a low level thing. What is the specific part of this application is vulnerable to this? And that's what they gave here. Well, moving to the second step, calendar item. Actually, it goes to the mail server. So whenever the mail originates from an outbox, it actually reaches the mail server, and from there it has to find the appropriate email server. So then the mail is relayed between the email servers. Once it reaches the recipient email server, and the email is grabbed by the recipient from that email server. Well, that is the email flow. And look at this one. Once it reaches this email server, it actually moves to the email client. Customer accesses the .msg file in form of the reminder of calendar invite. And once the email, that specific message reaches the mail server and the client email box, what happens? And look at the third step here. It actually target both A and B. I mean, the target both A and B initiates connection for NTLM authentication. And that's the spooky part. So the attacker did something. Once that message reaches to the victim, it starts authenticating through that NTLM protocol. It could be SMB, right? So that is the flaw actually. But we need to understand, we need to know what sort of changes the attacker did that actually made the victim to request the NTLM. I mean, request the NTLM request. Well, once it obtained, the attacker target share obtained the NTLM authentication request, it can able to retrieve that NTLM hash value. Obtaining NTLM hash value is nothing but obtaining that user access to that specific machine. And that makes this vulnerability very critical. And look at this one. Not only the SMB request, the request through SMB, also the request through web DAV can be done. I'll tell you what is web DAV. I think it's a web server that actually used for some file serving purposes. That's what that's what the web DAV means. So let's do some research on web DAV. If you have no idea what is web DAV, here is an explanation. Web DAV is a set of extension to the hypertext transfer protocol, which allows user agents to collaboratively author contents directly from HTTP web server, providing facilities. I think that is not a comprehensive one. Look at this one. What is web DAV? Web distributed authoring and versioning. It's a protocol whose basic functionality includes enabling users to share, copy, move, and edit files through web server. So it's a kind of file sharing property through a web server. Well, that is how you need to, I mean, that's what you need to know. Okay, so once it receives that message, it simply sends that request to both it could be SMB or it could be web DAV. The protocol is NTLM, and that is the very important thing here. Well, let's see the details of the exploitation. The attacker sends a message to the victim with extended message application program interface property with universal naming convention. In Windows operating system, you might have seen whenever you are trying to navigate through the file system, you might have used the path in Windows, backward slashes, couple of backward slashes, the device name, backward slash, the path, backward slash, the file. And that is actually called as universal naming convention. It is similar to URL, uniform resource locator, but the UNC is typically used in the Windows systems to locate a specific file or specific folder navigate through this file system. Now what they are trying to say, the attacker sends message to victim with extended message application program interface property with a universal naming convention path to a remote attacker controlled server message block. Well, they took this SMB server. This is actually controlled by the attacker. Obviously, it is listening for that the NTLM handshake from the victim. And once the attacker crafts that MSG file with this UNC and send it to the victim, when the victim process, the infected Outlook application processes that the MSG file, it actually triggers the NTLM request to the attacker. Well, share hosted on a server controlled by the attacker, the vulnerability is exploited whether the recipient has seen the message or not. And this is a very important point. So you are sending an invitation. It is not required that the user has to see that message that you have sent. They no need to see that. Once you send that message to the victim, if it reached the victim's email box, it automatically triggers. And that makes this vulnerability very, very dangerous. And that is why we are calling it as zero-click vulnerability, because it absolutely requires no interaction from the user, not at all. Well, The attacker remotely sends malicious calendar invite represented by MSG, and it can be exploited remotely, and that is another crucial factor in this. The message format that supports reminder in Outlook. To trigger the vulnerable API endpoint, play reminder sound using PID-LID reminder file parameter. Well, this is the important parameter. It's actually a low-level stuff in the Outlook. To trigger the vulnerable API endpoint, play remind sound using this specific whatever method or something. The custom, this is the custom alert sound option for reminders. Looks like they are trying to tweak this specific parameter, and this one I suppose. So by tweaking this, they managed to add this UNC in the spot of this one, so that whenever it try to ring that alarm message to that reminder, instead it actually try to reach that SMB path or WebDAV. When victims connect to the attacker SMB server, the connection to the remote server sends the user's new technology LAN manager NTLM negotiation messages automatically, which the attacker can use for authentication against other system that supports NTLM authentication. So once the attacker obtained that NTLM hash, it can be used to carry multiple other attacks. It could be pass the hash. The hash could be used for the hash cracking, or the hash could be used to exploit the other systems on the same victim network. Well, the NTLM V2 hashes are latest protocol Windows uses for authentication, and it is used for a number of services, with each response containing a hashed representation of user information such as username and password. As such, threat actors can attempt a NTLM relay attack to gain access to other services, or a full compromise of domains if the compromised users are admins. Well, these are the scenarios, these are the possibilities that they're just mentioning here. While the online services such as Microsoft 365 and susceptible to this attack because they do not support NTLM authentication. All right, I think I have confused here. They mentioned why Microsoft 365 applications are not vulnerable for this, because it is not supporting the NTLM authentication. Well, only the Microsoft 365 Windows Outlook application is vulnerable. Well, how we see it is to exploit. User interaction is not necessary, as I said, and it's a zero-touch vulnerability, as I mentioned before. It is difficult to block outbound SMB traffic for remote users. The attacker could use the same credential to gain access to the other resources. And again, I have mentioned these things. Now let's move on to this image. What are the possible attack scenarios? And look at this one. There are two entities, attacker and target. The attacker is hosting an SMB share. That is where the payload is that is where the attacker is waiting to capture the NTLM request that is sent by the victim. Well, the attacker receives the NTLM hash over the communication. All right. Attacker NTLM hash obtained for actions that require higher privileges. Target receives remote commands over SMB. Well, by using that NTLM hash, the attacker could give some commands over the SMB, and that is also possible. Defense evasion, lateral movement, and exfiltration, that eventually leads to these notorious events. Well, eventually it also leaks the hash value. Well, I am moving down. Look at this one. Relay attacks gain notoriety as the use case of mimikatz using NTLM credential dumping routine via secure SA. Pardon me if I am pronouncing it wrongly. In addition, pass the hash is also possible. Attack used the attack by using the hash value. Well, moving down, similar image, and here connection is established after initial NTLM authentication relay. Attacker receives message and includes dev set cookie. I'm not sure what it is, but moving on, attacker can use this cookie for as shadow credential. Attacker can respond with directory traversal. Well, looks like this specific exploitation leads to a lot of other things. It opens a lot of doors for the attacker. Well, moving down, web DAB directory traversal for payload attacker routine. All right. Now look at this one. What can I do to prevent and mitigate the risk of exploitation? Well, this is the important part. if you are a part of blue team, then you must know this. What are the things, what are the preventive measures that you can take to mitigate this? Like you have to apply the patches first. If the patch applying is not feasible at that time, then you can consider blocking the SMB traffic, especially the outbound SMB, and that is another thing. And customer can disable the web client service. This is another recommendation. Add users to the protected user security group. Actually, when you add the users to the protected user security group, it actually prevents the use of NTLM. So obviously, it is a method to mitigate the specific attack. Well, enforce SMB signing on client and servers to prevent the SMB relay attack. Once they obtain the hash value, it could be leading to the SMB relay attack. That's why they're asking you to disable enforce the SMB signing. All right. So this is what the mitigation steps that they gave. And I'm scrolling down and look at this one. They also gave an incredible script that actually allows us to find whether we are susceptible to this flaw or not. And I'm scrolling down. Looks like it has a lot of references. All right. Now with this, we have done exploring this TrendMicro blog. To understand the impact of this vulnerability, see this script. A malware researcher, a security researcher, actually published an IOC. That is actually an IOC of an email file. That email file is actually a crafted malicious Outlook event reminder. And you can see the CVE ID here. And here is the IOC. So it actually indicates the attacker has already started doing that exploitation, the notorious stuff. Patch it immediately, because the patch would be the essential one for this specific attack mitigation. Now let's go and explore this Outlook NTLM leak exploitation. And let's see the introduction. On Tuesday, March 14, they gave the date actually when they have patched this vulnerability, and the critical vulnerability impacts all versions of Outlook desktop application on Windows system. And unlike most exploits, this one is particularly dangerous because it's a zero-click exploit, meaning no user interaction. Again, the same kind of theory. All right. Now I have connected to this machine. Here I have opened this machine in a separate tab. If you get this pop-up message once you logged in this machine, then you can ignore this one, as they are not using the registered version of Outlook. And we are not going to answer for any questions through this room. Instead, we are going to learn the exploitation. Instead, we are going to focus on the exploitation. Well, it is starting now, and look at this. The mailbox is empty, and here is the email, test@thm.loc. Well, we are going to use this email box to create the calendar invite, and we are going to keep that invite ourselves, and we are going to receive. Simple. We are going to exploit this TryHackMe's machine, and we don't know the NTLM hash of this specific machine, the user of this specific machine. So we are going to exploit this machine, and we are going to grab that NTLM hash. Well, make sure you are connected to TryHackMe's VPN so that you can establish the connectivity between our machine to TryHackMe's machine. All right. Now moving to the next one, abusing appointment alerts. Well, here is the part. Here they give how you can craft that attachment, the malicious MSG message. Here they simply gave attacker creates the Outlook MSG file, but they didn't elaborate it. But here in this TryHackMe room, they clearly explained how you can craft that calendar invite. Now let's go through this. Outlook appointment alerts. On Outlook, it is possible to add reminder notification when sending calendar invitations. So there is a facility in Outlook where you can mention the reminder after what time you have to remind that specific recipient about that meeting. So that is the facility we are going to exploit. Well, let's scroll down. You can specify here you can see the two steps. The first thing, once you click the reminder, you have to click this 0 minutes. Then only At the moment you set up this calendar invite, it will trigger. And you also choose this sound option in order to tweak some details. And you can see when you click this sound, it will be giving an audio file. This audio file will be played as a reminder sound. It's like a notification tone. So instead of using this default notification tone, we are going to use, this is where we are going to put our the UNC path, Universal Naming Convention path. This is the path of our attacker machine. Well, manipulating this parameter can enable threat actors to force the Outlook to leak the current password hashes to the attacker with zero interaction required. Well, abusing reminder sounds via UNC paths. To exploit this vulnerability, an attacker must create malicious calendar invite. And the attacker also has to replace this audio file with this UNC convention, Universal Naming Convention. Well, you can see this parameter to set up. Let me explain this one. What does it mean? At low level, an Outlook email stores the reference to the sound file in internal parameter called PID-LID reminder file parameter. Actually, this audio file detail is stored in this specific parameter. To ensure that the audio we embed in our malicious email will take precedence over the victim's default reminder configuration, we also need to set another parameter called PID-LID reminder override. Alright, even though if you set your own UNC here, Outlook by default takes the default audio file. In order to override that, we have to set this value as true. That is another thing. Well, to set up the PID-LID reminder file parameter property to point the network share, the attacker can specify the UNC path instead of the local file. UNC is used in Windows operating system. As I said, it is the path in Windows operating system. This is how the path on the local machine or a specific file on the remote machine will be able to navigate through the file system by using this specific convention. Well, look at this image. This image looks cool, and here's the victim PC, and the attacker captured the hash. Okay, let's see how it is captured. And first of all, the specific appointment message is sent to the victim's PC, embedded with this. By embedding this specific UNC, once the victim receives that calendar invite, automatically it triggers the SMB request, the NTLM request to the specific attacker. So the attacker actually keep the listener ready so that they'll be able to capture the NTLM hash. That is simple. If for some reason SMB protocol is not viable alternative to use, non-server versions of Windows will accept UNC path pointing to port 80 or 443 and use HTTP to retrieve the file from WebDAV enabled web server. Well, this is another syntax can be used when you are using the SMB server instead of WebDAV. So this is an attacker perspective. This may be useful to bypass firewall restrictions preventing outgoing SMB 445. In the mitigation, we have mentioned it is advised to block the outbound SMB traffic. Though you block the outbound SMB traffic, it can still be overridden by using this specific notation through the WebDAV enabled web server. Well, that is the overview of this, the basic of this flaw. And let's see how we can craft this malicious appointment. Well, instead of going through this specific tedious list of steps, I'm planning to do it here in this machine, so it will save our time. So I have already tried this, so I'm going to show how you can do this. Well, here is the Outlook email box. I'm going to the calendar page in order to create a new invitation. In order to exploit this, you have to create a new calendar invite. Well, I'm clicking on the calendar randomly, and I'm going to create a calendar. Like I'm simply giving the name called name please subscribe. And here I have created the invite. Well, I am actually in the appointment tab now. Now what I can do, I'm just trying to click this. Let's see what happens. Now actually it opened that specific calendar invite where you can add the other details also. I'm copying the same stuff in the location also. Please subscribe Perumal Jagan YouTube channel. Well, I add some message. Now look at this one. This is what we were talking. We are going to exploit this reminder facility, and I'm clicking this. Reminder is none for now. You should keep it as 0 minutes. That is when it will be triggered instantly. And I have chosen this 0 minutes. Again, I'm going to this sound option, and here is the sound option. This is where I'm going to replace this specific audio file, and we are going to keep our own UNC path. Well, let's see. The path is need not to be exist. It can also be some fake path, but it should point your attacker machine, because irrespective of its presence, the victim machine is anyway going to give the NTLM request, right? So we are going to mention our IP here and also some non-existent path. Now let's see how it can be done. All right, I'm in the CLI now. I'm actually trying to verify the IP address of mine. The TryHackMe's VPN address 10.17.532, and I'm mentioning that here 10.17.532. Yeah, I pasted it. Some fake path. The path is not exist. I'm simply giving it. Please subscribe, and some file name Perumal Jagan .wav, an audio file. Now I'm simply copying this here in the clipboard. I'm clicking OK, and now I have set the sound also. But here is an issue. I'm just trying to see that sound configuration once again. Unfortunately, our change is gone. Whatever the changes we made is gone. It is simply taking that default file once again. And in order to overcome this specific block, I'm going to use a plugin called Outlook Spy. Actually, this plugin is not a default plugin. For the sake of exploitation, TryHackMe has added this Outlook Spy plugin in this Outlook application. So I'm clicking this one, and here I'm going to current item option, and here you can see that specific appointment item and its parameters. And here I need to scroll down further to the option reminder minutes before start, reminder override default, and reminder play sound, and reminder sound file, I suppose. So these are the three parameters you need to modify so that so that you will be able to put your UNC path in this attachment permanently. Well, let's see. I'm just trying to edit this one here. Unfortunately, I'm unable to edit this, but we can use this script option here in order to craft that script, so that once you craft the script and click run, it will be replicated here. Now that's what I'm going to do, and for that I'm scrolling down, and look at this one, the three parameters they gave: reminder play sound, reminder override default, reminder sound file. So these are the three parameters I said before. All right, now I'm actually going to this script, and here I'm copying this appointment item dot this specific parameter, reminder play sound, and I'm mentioning true here. It's a Boolean value, and I'm going to this reminder override default. I'm choosing this one as well, and I'm trying to craft this script here. So let me craft it and complete it. All right, and here reminder sound file, and this is where I need to mention the sound file. All right, this one again true, but this one is the path. I need to mention the path here now within the double quotes, and the path is nothing but couple of backward slashes, my IP address, and a non-existent path. Please subscribe for the sake of demonstration. And some non-existent file, PJ, short form of Perumal Jagan, WAV. And I'm closing this one. And here I'm clicking run. For the safer side, I'm choosing all, I'm copying it, keeping it in my clipboard. I cannot type it once again. So I ran the script. So there is no messages, no alert here. And now you can see reminder override default, the value changes to true now. And the reminder play sound, it is true now. And look at the reminder sound file. Now we have replaced this default audio file with our UNC path. Now, whenever I save this appointment, a request will be triggered to my SMB server, listening SMB server. Now, you may ask a question, where is the SMB server? That is very simple. In fact, in Linux, that is so simple. I can use an application called Responder. So it will be acting as the SMB server for me. Well, I am simply running that Responder Python script with the proper interface. The interface is tunnel 0, I guess, tun 0. Yes, it is. And -i, tun 0, and -v for the verbosity. And I'm closing this. Let me trigger this. All right. So it is asking us to write this as root. So I'm running this as root, and look at this one. Now it is listening for the events, and you can see it is actually enabled bunch of servers. It is acting as a HTTP server, HTTPS, SMB server, Kerberos server. So this is the incredible thing about the tool Responder. Now it is listening for the events, right? All right. Now we have done crafting this. So I'm closing this. Good to close now. And here I'm going to the event once again, and I'm saving and closing it. Now in this point, you can simply click the invite attendees option, and you can mention some email IDs in order to send this invite. But I'm mentioning my email ID itself, test@thm.loc. I'm sending it to myself. Now it is fine, and I'm clicking send now. Now so far there is no events captured. I'm clicking send here, send anyway. Now still I'm not listening. I'm not getting any events. But now look at this. Would you like to update your own calendar now? And when you give yes, that is when your calendar invite is going to be saved. So once it is saved in this machine's hash will be captured in this specific responder. And I'm clicking yes. Now look at this. It is actually throwing the hash value of the administrator. And it's a admin hash. So by using this hash value, you can carry on multiple other attacks. It could be pass the hash, it could be password cracking, or it could be used for some lateral movement also. Well, that makes, the specific thing makes this vulnerability more spooky one. Well, and see this, the reminder is triggered because we mentioned 0 minutes. So that's why it actually spawned instantly the moment we created the invite. Well, we have captured this admin hash. So this is what the notorious thing about this vulnerability, and they gave all the steps that we have done so far. They gave here. So that is the boring steps. So that's why I simply shown this to you by trying it. All right, I have completed this. Now there is another option. You might feel crafting this invite could be tedious sometimes, but there is another option. A user called Oddwarmo. I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing your name, and I'm trying to open the GitHub repository of this specific person, and look at this. He has created this specific POC, the proof of concept, and here there is a PowerShell script. This is actually used as a PowerShell module. So you can simply import this specific script by using the import module PowerShell command, and I'm opening this. This will give you an understanding. And look at this: send calendar NTLM leak, save calendar NTLM leak. There are two functions. Each function is a command. So once you have imported this module in your PowerShell, you can use these two PowerShell commands with these parameters. So what will happen? By simply using this PowerShell command, you can craft and you can send the calendar invite to others also. And that is the thing. Through this PowerShell script, you'll be able to weaponize this attack. You can unleash the attack through this PowerShell script also. And that's what they gave. And look at this one. They actually, that user specifically created a COM object. The Outlook application has a COM object, and they have created an appointment, and they have added some details within the appointment. Well, they have modified the details that we have done manually. Reminder override default, reminder sound file, reminder play sound. So these are the things. Well, and here is the detail how you can use this specific PowerShell script to unleash the attack. They are simply using import module PowerShell command in order to import this PowerShell script. So once you import this, these two functions become a two PowerShell commands. So you can simply use it as a command: send calendar NTLM leak. So you can mention the recipient, remote file path, and meeting body in order to send that specific the crafted malicious invitation to your victim. Well, and since you are doing it in the PowerShell, you might be witnessing some alert messages. So you can simply give allow to those messages in order to trigger this specific exploit to the PowerShell. Well, that's it. With this weaponizing part is done. Now moving to the detection and mitigation part, a very crucial one in fact. In the detection and mitigation part, they gave a bunch of Sigma rules and Yara rules to detect this event. Now that we have gone through the steps, all right, this is just a simple theory. And look at the Sigma rule here. The following Sigma rule detects the Outlook initiating a connection to WebDAV or SMB share. So they covered both the scenarios in this Sigma rule. And look at this one. They have mentioned the security event, the security logs in Windows, and also they are capturing this two event ID. This is actually related to this specific Outlook exploit, and they are actually looking for the process name that ends with this one. And also, whenever you are trying to exploit through that Outlook crafted malicious Outlook message, it actually queries couple of Windows registry keys. So that's why they have mentioned that as well here. And yeah, so those are the things present in this. And here is another scenario. The rule looks to detect the svc host.exe spawning the run dll exe command. We have seen this DAV set cookie, but I couldn't understand what it exactly does. But looks like it's a kind of a post exploitation pace. There is a DLL file, and followed by this DAV set cookie, which indicates the post exploitation and exfiltration pace. So they have crafted a Sigma rule to detect this event as well. All right. Now moving to the next one, the Yara rule. Sigma rule is to detect the specific behavior. It is actually in the heuristics detection. But Yara is for the file detection. It looks for the specific patterns on the files stored on the disk. And look at this one. They have mentioned certain patterns. So obviously these patterns related to the Outlook invite. And I'm scrolling down further. I can see a couple of other Yara rules. And look at this one. They gave a use case here. Yara rule file. Here in this machine, if you go to the desktop folder, you can witness this Yara rule. So here is the Yara rule, and we can test this Yara rule here because the Yara is installed on the machine. So we can simply test it here. So I'm opening the PowerShell and I am simply copying this command Yara 64, and first of all I need to go to desktop and I need to execute this message. Now let's see what happens. I'm going to this Here I'm moving to desktop and I got bunch of files here. Yara 64.exe, it is already present, and I need to call the next file now, CVE, the specific Yara file. All right, and again I'm mentioning the Outlook appointment message and I'm clicking enter. Hopefully it will detect the file present, and look at this, it's successfully detected, and that's what they gave here in this specific image. Well, moving down further, look at this one. Microsoft, actually they have released an exclusive PowerShell script. I found this PowerShell script is bit lengthy, and but it is actually used to detect the specific MSG message, the infected crafted message file in the Exchange server, and it could be a useful file, a useful script in the enterprise environment to test for the vulnerable, to test for the malicious MSG file. Well, here are the mitigation steps. The mitigation steps we have already covered. First of all, the priority is for the patching, and if the patching is not possible, try to disable the outbound SMB traffic. If it is not possible, it has to be done. It's a mitigation. And disable the web client service to avoid the web DAV connection. And PowerShell script is released. You can make use of this script as well. Well, this is the mitigation step. I am going to the conclusion part. Let's read through this quickly. In this room, we have experienced with how a simple vulnerability could allow an attacker to access authentication material without requiring any interaction from their victim by sending a simple, specially crafted email. NTLM leaks are not new in the Windows environment, but having one in such a widespread application as Outlook make this particularly very important. Well, that's what I have mentioned in the early stage of my video, and they keep insisting us for the patching. Well, with this we have accomplished the Outlook NTLM leak exploitation. And yes, this is what I exactly wanted to showcase. Through this video, we have learned how trivial, how easy it is to exploit this Outlook vulnerability. Since the Outlook application is ubiquitous, used by many enterprises, many individuals, it becomes very important, very crucial to patch this vulnerability as soon as possible. If the patch is not possible at the moment, then you can take the mitigation steps that I have showcased a while ago. And that's what I just wanted to explain in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed and you have learned this, you have learned something new from this, and I hope I rang that caution bell. I'll catch you next time with another exciting one. Until then, I'm signing off. Cheers, and I love you all. Don't forget that YouTube protocol, like, comment, subscribe, everything. I'll catch you next time. Thank you, everyone.